All stand for the invocation. Lord, thank you for this gathering tonight of Canby citizens. Please give us direction and guidance in making wise and good decisions for the citizens of Canby. And of course, see us all home safely. And when we get home, that our spouses will not be in turmoil over the debate this evening, and that tongues will be in ample supply. In your name, amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, first I want to thank everybody for coming this evening, and you at Television Land for participating at a distance. So the first order of business is selection of a vice chair. Commissioner Hensley did tender his resignation, and so we have choose among us. And we can include the folks that aren't here, which are Chris Rocha and Daryl. So, Eric. So, open the nomination.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Christine.
Okay. Do I hear any other nominations? Do I hear a second?
I have a question, though.
Sure.
I heard that she wasn't going to.
She will be. She's got another year. I think.
We've heard that she's planning not to renew come the end of December.
Of this year.
Yeah.
Is her term up this year?
I'll withdraw that.
Okay. Then it's back open for nominations.
Mr. Chair,
Any other nominations? Do I hear a second?
I have another rumor.
I would nominate. I would nominate Larry Boatwright and support his nomination to this. I'd be happy to serve if, for some reason, I'm still on the Planning Commission come December, but I do plan to apply and hope to be selected as city councilor. And so if that was to take place, I wouldn't want to be the vice chair for one more month. And then if I was lucky enough to get selected, switch again. So.
Okay, so
Mr. Chair.
yes.
Third and final time. I recommend Larry Boatwright for the position of vice.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Boatwright. You are now the vice chair of the Planning
Thank you,
Commission.
guys.
Okay. Scampering along. Do we have any citizen input on non-agenda items? Seeing as though there are a limited number of citizens and no one spoke up, then we will approve the minutes. We have to do this individually, is that correct, Ryan?
Yeah. Be best.
To approve the minutes of May 23rd, 2016.
I make a motion we approve the minutes of May 23rd, 2016.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from July 11th, 2016.
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we approve the minutes for July 7th, July 11th, 2016 meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from July 25th, 2016 Planning Commission.
Make a motion.
Second.
Let's see, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay. So now we will move along to our public hearing. We will consider a request for annexation and zone change for property located on North Oak Street. That's ANN 16-04/ZC 1604 John Meredith. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please be prepared to step forward to the microphone at the appropriate time. That are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please sign in on the sheet or speak up when we call for testimony. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. You may be limited by time for your presentation. Generally, the applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be given 5 minutes each. The opponents will be given 5 minutes each, and those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 rebuttals. All questions must be directed through the body for public access and to become a part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or issues related to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify, even if it is only to concur with previous testimony. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing the present matter.
I have no conflicts.
Me either.
Okay. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including visits, such contact at this time.
None.
I just drive by it a couple of times a day. So,
I think I participated in this development concept plan a few years ago. Isn't that what? But it was this the area that was covered by that thing we
No,
did? about
that was
4 or 5
part of the
years ago?
North Redwoods that
That was
you're
a different
thinking
one,
of. Yeah.
does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding conflict of interest or ex parte contact? Okay, the public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, we'll have the staff report, and then questions, if any, by us. And then we'll open a public hearing. We'll have more than 15 each, opponents, not more than 5 minutes each. People thought to be neutral, not more than 5 minutes each, and then rebuttal by the applicant, not more than 10 minutes each. I will then close the public testimony and questions, if any, by us. Discussion and deliberation by the hearing body at that time. No additional testimony unless specifically allowed by the chair. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure for this hearing? Brian.
Thank you, Chair Savory, and good evening, Commission. This particular application is an annexation, And because of the recent state legislation that kind of usurps the city's charter, they no longer go to a vote of the people. So you are making a recommendation to the city council, and they'll make the final decision at that time as to whether this piece of property that's 1.8 acres and includes the one half of the adjacent right-of-way of Territorial Road. And it is located at the southeast corner of Territorial and North Locust Street. And there is a little bit of additional property to the east of this property that is yet to be annexed into the city, but otherwise it's completely surrounded by the city limits, including that other property that isn't in the city. So we kind of have an island here. And I always like to point out that whenever there's an opportunity to get rid of islands, I think it's a really good idea to do so, because those people are, for all practical purposes, living and part of the community, and it makes sense when they're ready to get annexed for us to try to do so. Whenever we do annex, we assign a new zoning district. We assign the performance. They're choosing to follow the comprehensive plan, which says this should be medium-density residential, which is R 1.5 zone. So that means there'll be a bit smaller lots when they do a subdivision. And there is a conceptual plan of a possible subdivision that's on page 67 of 80. It's a little tiny number in the bottom, and that plan is not only important just so you can see how the property most likely would be developed in the future, and get a feeling that there's an existing home proposed plan. And one of the most important aspects is that it shows an extension of a new public street, Northeast 18th Avenue, going eastward from North Oak Street. And the importance of that street is not only to serve his subdivision, but it's intended to keep going eastward into those other properties that have yet to be annexed. And it's always very difficult to try to place such a street so it works not only for the property we're looking at now, but potentially would work for the other properties yet to be annexed. And it looks like it can potentially work. That it's a pretty good idea to have a design that has a new public street to help meet our comprehensive plan policies for interconnectability within neighborhoods, and that's one of the reasons we want to press for that kind of street. He's not able to achieve as many lots as maybe he would like to do because of this public street, but we think it's an overall preferred design for the community as a whole to achieve those objectives of interconnectability. So he's agreed to do that. Another requirement in annexations, they're one of the most comprehensive and all sorts of considerations. From probably the biggest one in your decision is, will adequate public facilities be available? And all evidence through our pre-application meeting with all the utility agencies and say that yes, they will be responsible for some extensions of some utility mains to serve the property, but they're all there and readily available to serve this property. Another thing that we look at is any impacts on traffic. And specifically with an annexation, we're not really approving a development. It's portrending development, but we're not actually approving this subdivision design. What kind of impact, once you have that development, might it have on traffic in the immediate area? And in this particular case, it's a very small subdivision. We weren't too concerned about with the volume of traffic, but what we did have to do is address with a traffic study that was basically a letter indicating that it's in conformance with the transportation planning rule. And the intent of that transportation planning rule, I'm going to read here, is to ensure that the future land use and traffic growth is consistent with the transportation system planning and does not create significant impact on the surrounding transportation system beyond the currently allowed uses. And the extent that zone change was in conformance with our transportation plan and the comprehensive plan. And in this case, I already indicated they're following the comprehensive plan. And in 2010, when we did the transportation plan, they anticipated this land would eventually be developed in a medium residential fashion. So they already accounted for the traffic when they developed the capital improvement plan that's associated with the TSP. And so we're not anticipating any additional significant transportation impacts by assigning this new zone, which will result eventually in a new development. The development agreement was required in this case because our annexation ordinance has a map that defines areas that are required to develop a concept development plan and have it adopted by the council, and those that are in an area defined by a development agreement. This one was defined by a development agreement, and there is no specific items that are designated to be included in such a development agreement, but we do that so that anything we want to make sure happens when an application is made will be balanced, that they put a new public street heading eastward out of this property to connect with the adjacent property when it annexes. And so that's the main provision that's included in the development agreement. They also indicate that they're going to be annexing and dedicating future right-of-ways for North Oak and for part of Territorial Road. So we'll have the full right-of-ways we need when those streets, when a development comes forward and those streets are done. I think that's the main things that we see in the development agreement. And that concludes my report.
Okay, any questions or observations?
I was curious, where is the obligation that they build that road there? I didn't see it in the conditions.
In the development agreement itself is required to be recorded within 7 days after the council acts to approve the annexation. And so in that development agreement, which I got it marked here somewhere, let's see which page it's on. It's on page 57 of 80. And if you go under like items C, D, E, F, and G, those are the conditions that are indicated. And like talked about, to construct a new street, Northeast 18th Avenue, west from North Oak Street. And it has some him and hawing language in there that, hey, when they actually submit their application, they'll do it in accordance with where the city exactly wants that street to be. So, in other words, it might shift a few feet north or south when the actual application is made, but it'll be within bounds of that conceptual drawing that you see.
Okay, thank you.
So Brian, I want to just be clear now, Territorial, as we all know, is a county road, correct?
No, it's actually city operation. Road is. Yeah, city operation.
Okay.
I think I looked at that just recently, and I think I was even surprised.
Well, at the last city council meeting when they were discussing speed bumps to put on Birch, it was brought up that Territorial was indeed a county
No, and we went through with the Traffic Safety Commission to get the speed limit on Territorial Road lowered, and that was a city application because we have the operation of that street.
So, in a recent traffic study, there are 4,000 cars a day to go down and then go down Birch Street, which was the rationale for putting speed bumps. I think there are 4 of them on Birch Street. And you were saying that the traffic is accounted for, but that's all, from my perspective, all this is going to do is add, more traffic to that 4,000. Probably a drop in the bucket, considering that there's only 8, but still, that will.
Right. And so, you're just stating a fact that is true of every single development. It all adds traffic to the community.
Right.
It's a matter of whether it's going to add traffic in a manner that makes existing streets or intersections go below or, that's an important thing for people to realize, is just because we say it's not going to have a significant impact, it's defined by our adopted level of service. It doesn't mean that we're going to continually have more congestion, because we will. As long as there's more development, there'll always be more congestion.
Right.
And we all are experiencing that.
So, if as a condition of approval, we ask the developer to put in speed bumps along there, can we do that?
You'd have to have some good basis for that. Where would you put it? Because we're near this particular, unless you think North Oak Street
No, I was
might need
thinking
it.
specifically of Territorial.
Yeah, we couldn't put them on there. That the fire department won't allow, and it's a standard practice in all communities on the major fire collector routes that you don't put speed bumps. There to get the fire and emergency services across town as quickly as they can. And so it's an accepted practice not to put those on those particular streets. That's one reason they didn't put speed bumps from Knightsbridge Road up to 10th Avenue, put them on North Birch, because they were a primary route to get around town.
So what about, could we require a stop sign?
Stop signs are another issue that has to have warrants as to where you put stop signs, because stop signs can actually cause more harm and more accidents and more deaths if they're not put in the proper place. And we usually use MUTDC warrants as to where stop signs are warranted or not. One place where we studied that issue was at the intersection of North Ivy and Northeast 10th, and we finally made that a 4-way stop, and that was based upon traffic count. Actual traffic on both streets were relatively the same. That was a primary reason it justified putting a stop sign. We would have done it anyway, because everybody wanted that stop sign.
Sure.
And I don't know if you've been through that intersection, but it feels so much safer now
Yeah.
with everybody stopping.
The only reason I bring this up is because I know how heavy that Territorial is traveled
Yeah.
in the morning and in the evening, and
So what will happen eventually is there'll be a stoplight at Redwood and Territorial. The Red neighborhood, Mass. Light there. At this point in time, it doesn't warrant one, and so you don't spend $350,000 to $400,000 unless it's really going to help direct and funnel and cause safety. But when you have a whole lot more traffic on a street that's supposed to take people across town, you don't want to be stopping or slowing them down, or it causes more problems because people get angry and they just run them because there's nobody coming on the other street.
All right, then, any more questions for Brian? That would be you, Pat.
Pat Sissel with Sissel Engineering, 375 Portland Avenue, Gladstone. Good evening, Chair Savory and Planning Commission members. It's just me tonight. John Meredith is working at the coast today and let me know this afternoon that he probably wasn't going to be able to make it back in time tonight, but he wanted to be here, just so you know. As Brian mentioned, this property is 1.65 acres, and it'll translate into 9 single-family lots. There's one existing house on the property near territorial, and that home is supposed to remain. So it could be developed with the R1.5 zone permits duplexes as well, but it's my client's intent to develop it as single-family residential. As I mentioned, these lots would be zoned R1.5, which is medium-density residential, and I've been doing work in Canby fairly heavily since the late 1990s, and ever since then, there's been very few lots in the R1.5 zone. The bulk of the development in Canby has been in the R1 zone, low density residential. There's been a lot of work. Well, I would say on average, there's been less than 10 lots available for development in the R1.5 zone. I mean, Canby's available lot counts have been high on both ends, really more weighted toward the R1, and just very few in that middle zone. So I think bringing R1.5 land into the city will help balance the available lots in all 3 zones across the city's inventory, which it gives another product out there for people to buy, maybe some lower cost homes, a little more affordable for people just starting out. As Brian mentioned, there's water in Territorial and in Oak. There's sanitary sewer in Territorial and Oak. Franchise utilities are available along the frontage of the site, and as the TSP study indicated, that the traffic generation from the 8 more homes, although it will have an impact, it'll be a minimal impact, and it was planned for. And it was studied with the adoption of the TSP a few years ago. So because the site was planned to be medium-density residential and it will be developed as medium-density residential, it's already planned for. So we don't see any issues utility-related or transportation-related with this annexation. I'd kind of like to focus on the available platted lots in Canby, and if you want to turn to page 41 in your packet, it's got a spreadsheet where we've analyzed available platted lots in Canby by subdivisions, and then at the bottom of the page by minor land partitions. I just want to note that on the bottom half of the page where it says available platted lots in Canby by minor land partitions, there's a date that says as of February 5th, 2016. That should have read July 25th, 2016. So what this sheet, this page indicating is at the city of Canby, and have lots still remaining in them, or maybe their inventory has just recently been fully wiped out. But you can see the columns to pay attention to are R1 zone lots remaining, R1.5 zone lots remaining, R2 zone lots remaining. And if you look at that and you go down to the box at the bottom of that top half of the page, it shows that there's 55 lots remaining in the R1 zone, 0 lots remaining in the R1.5 zone, and 23 lots remaining in the R zone. This is at the July 25th. In the column titled zoning, you can see what I've been mentioning. Nearly most of those developments are all R1 developments. There's a few R2s, and of all those that are mentioned, there's one that had R1.5 lots. So you can see that there's just very few subdivisions that come in with R1.5 land. In the bottom half of the page, the spreadsheet notes minor land partitions that have lots remaining, and it shows in the box as of 7/20 remaining in the R1 zone, 0 in the R1.5, and 3 in the R2. And so if you total up at the bottom of the page, in the R1.5 and the R1, there's 61 lots remaining. All of those are R1s. And there was 26 in the R2 zone, 87 lots total. Are there any questions about that page before we look at the next page? Okay. On the page 42, the box at the top of the page shows the number of single-family and multifamily permits that were pulled by month in 2015. In total, there were building permits pulled in 2015, 17 in the multifamily residential zone, or the R2 zone. In the second box down, it's a breakdown of building permits for new construction, and it looks at a 10-year historical average, a 3-year historical average, and then the 2015 totals. So the 10-year historical average is 447 permits over 10 years, which is 44.7 permits per year, or 3.73 per month. The 3-year average is strikingly similar, 45.8 permits per year. Number of permits pulled was on an average of 85 per year, more than double the 3-year and the 10-year average.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask some questions? Mr. Sissel, can you, the thing I'm having trouble with, I agree with, I think, the conclusion you're getting to here, that there is a need for additional residential lots in Canby. But the problem that I have is I'm not sure that I buy that we need 1.5 specifically. Now, I see your graph, but 49 of those R1 lots are from the regions that have been pending. So those are going to be, once those are built and gone, those are relatively big ones, 17, 17, and 15 total. It's not really going to be that top heavy. Once those were big, 40-something odd lot subdivisions. I don't necessarily, know that we have this gluttony of large lots in Canby that we need much medium-sized lots.
Well, I think the inventory in Canby typically is between a year and a half to 3 years of supply. That's, it's typically in that range. I guess my point is virtually all of those lots that make up that year and a half to 3 year supply are almost all R1 lots, because there has been historically very few lots in the R1.5 zone. We used to look at the average building per zone, and the number of permits in an R1.5 zone, the average was always low. It was always like 1 or 2 permits per year. And it's not because nobody wants to build R1.5 lots, it's because there's never been any R1.5 lots available. Now, there's been some other annexations recently, and some of that land was zoned R1.5, and I think it's a good thing. I think you want a mix of available lots. I don't know what lots are going for in Canby. One lot lots are probably 150 of a new home immediately. And I think having smaller lots in the 5,000, 5,500 square foot range will make it a little more affordable for some people. It introduces a little different product into the mix, is my feeling. But I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing. I just wanted to point it out to you. In getting to the remaining buildable lot supply, the third box down on page 42, again, I just want to note, it says as of February 25th, 2016, that date should be July 2016. Here's what is left. If you look at the 10-year average and go use that rate, there's about 1.95 years worth of supply left. If you use the 3-year historical average, there's about 1.92 years of buildable supply left. And if you look at the 2015 building rate, there's slightly over a year left. And then we projected it forward to the end of 2016 in the bottom box. And there we added in the subdivisions that you've approved and are under development, but the plats haven't recorded yet. The Feist Edition Phase 7 division, the Raleigh Place, Charlie Clark subdivision, another 6-lot development, R1. And if you look at the averages, at the end of this year, using the 10-year average, there'd be 1.8 year supply left, or 1.77 year supply left looking at the 3-year average, and 3/4 of a year left looking at the 2015 rate. Again, those are estimates. I don't know what the 2016 building rate is doing compared to the 2015, but I imagine it's probably pretty similar. I just want to close by saying I think annexations, they take some time, and I don't know if you're up here and you see a development come before you as a subdivision application, and that takes time to translate into lots that are available. In 2014, the Southeast 13th Avenue Development Concept Plan came before you in the summer, and it went to a vote of the people in November 2014. There's activity out in that area, but nearly 2 years later, there are yet to be one lot developed in that 32-acre development concept plan that was annexed into the city. So I expect all annexations to take that year to a year and a half of supply. I just think that we need to keep moving some land in to the city at a reasonable rate, and I think this development being 1.65 acres isn't an unreasonable annexation request, and I think it should be approved. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any more questions? Okay. All righty. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Any people out there considered neutral on the matter? Public testimony, and we will have questions, if any. Mr. Boatwright?
No questions, Joe.
No questions? Okay. So no additional testimony, so we will make a decision. The decision will be, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the recommendations of staff for the reasons stated by the staff. There is a need for additional property within the city limits. It is wholly contained, as our staff said, in an island, so it's almost unreasonable into our city. it's surrounded by existing utility services that are available. It's a small impact with only 1.65, 1.7 something total acres to be in the city, and that there's no issue with financing or comprehensive plan designations or traffic impacts, and so that we should approve it.
Do we hear a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So, final decision, our new business. So I'm going to look to the back of the room there. Two young folks walked in, and
You know
so,
what, we had a previous commitment tonight, and we were interested in the John Meredith piece. It was interesting, so we stuck around.
okay, glad to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, any new business? Hearing none, then we will have a final decision. Entertain a motion to approve ANN 16-04 /ZC 16-04 for John Meredith.
Yeah. And if you would like, we can always add I wrote down the items that you indicated. We can always add these to these findings if
No,
you'd
I don't think
like.
that was necessary. I was just
But
stating the rationale. Additional rationale.
Have a second?
Did you? Was there findings in the back?
yeah, they're
Oh, the second.
page 78
Oh,
of
different
80.
subject. Okay.
Yeah, we put them on there.
Let's see that page. I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Something for me to sign, Brian? Paper.
We didn't do the fancy, did we?
No fancy paper for me
No
to sign?
fancy.
So you'll scan that and send it to me? So items of interest from the staff, Brian, I know that you do.
Yeah, so I handed out on your dais this little map here, and we don't normally do this, but kind of somewhat of a special case this time in what turned out to be a little bit of a miscommunication with one of our citizens who's working on a project, and I believe that I come to the planning commission that would do it, but just to see how you might react if this person is considering on a very large lot near the northeast corner, 12th Avenue and North Locust Street. You can see it highlighted in blue. There's an existing house that you see on that lot that's fronting on Locust. And back in the skinny arm that heads up to 12th Avenue, he would like to build a detached accessory dwelling unit in his property. He's not dividing the property, he's just building a detached accessory dwelling. And just a little background, accessory dwellings in the past 9 years, and 2 of them were last year. You may have recalled. One of them was near the downtown area where they built a garage and put an accessory dwelling unit on top of the new garage. Another one was in someone's rear yard, and they connected, I don't know if, I can't remember now if they connected utilities from the house or put separate meters, but actually, I think we've done 3 now this past year. So we've done 4 probably in 9 years. And so they're becoming more frequent here more recently. But the question is, and I've copied the relevant code, number 3, it says accessory dwellings shall not exceed 800 square feet of floor area. Well, he has designed an accessory dwelling that is 790 square feet, a cute little tiny home to place in the backyard. But he wanted to take advantage of some extra room and designed it with a full basement. Some thoughts are that it's going to primarily serve for extra place for heating and cooling and storage. So it could be playrooms, recreation room, it could be living space of this home. So the question is whether, when you think about why are these regulations here, what was the purpose of these standards for keeping accessory dwellings a certain size and restricting that? And since it says square feet of floor area, could we exclude a basement from that calculation? And in my discussion with him early on, I said maybe not including basements. We've never had one proposed. We're not likely in Canby to have another one. It's an unusual situation. Hardly anyone builds basements new. But there are places where you can do that in Canby, and he's proposing in this location, thinks it's a good place to do that and take advantage of some extra space in what otherwise, to the neighbors, will appear to be a tiny home. And so I think the primary restrictions, what their intent was, is when you plop another house in a rear yard, and this is a little different just because of the shape of the lot, not a typical rear yard, but we have in this neighborhood are all surrounded by existing single-family homes. He could propose to build a two-story home and put a garage on the bottom that could hold storage and such, but he doesn't want to do that because he thinks that's out of character with the neighborhood. He would also have to potentially comply with step-back standards, but they don't stop a two-story home. They just require the second story to be set back further from the adjacent properties that have single-story homes. Yes.
Either I'm missing something or I misheard you, but I thought you said it was not attached to the primary dwelling. If that's the case,
it's not.
then D3 does not apply. Because D3 is only when the primary dwelling.
Well, what I'm familiar with is looking at on page, last page, the very last page, page 3, where it talks about accessory dwellings that are not attached. Then, and this is actually, well, we've always said that this is an error in here. It says D2 requirements. We don't believe it's just talking about D2. We've always thought that that was an error in our code, and it's meaning D1 through 8. Yeah. And so we've always said one item, but all of them. But, you know, if it's not an error, then you're certainly right. We've always been applying that to have meant 1 through 8, and that's a typo in there. I'm trying to think if that's, why would they only pick for detached?
Because it's a conditional use on the detached, where it's an approved use.
So they give you more.
If you're actually attached, it's just an add-on.
So they're giving you a wider range.
If you do a conditional use,
You may
do
be
more
right.
with it.
You may be right. We've thought it was a typo. In which case,
Either way, it's like he potentially
could do that.
approved.
Yeah, if we're only applying D2 and we aren't restricting him to the 800 square feet, that's a good point. Well, you've been very helpful. We didn't even, I mean, we've been interpreting that as a typo for several years now.
You gotta brought him in as a ringer. So So what are you asking us
Yeah,
to do?
if you think that that's a reasonable interpretation of exactly what the code says now, it's not restricting it to 800 feet if you go through the conditional use permit process. You have to do something greater than 800 square feet. That's an easy way. And so you'll be seeing him at some point in the future, when he finishes his design, makes his conditional use application. He'll follow through, I'm sure now.
Okay. City of Canby, new library civic center, items of interest from staff.
So
So
this,
you don't want to move into the new dates?
no, we're excited now, but it's a lot of work, and we're pulling our hairs out because we have to actually pare down to fit into the new building, and we have more files than anyone else has. And so we've been trying to throw away as much as we can and go through the official destruction state law procedures and close on Thursday this week and actually move on Friday. And the library has already started moving today.
And we wouldn't take my return books. Huh? We're going to be overdue.
So this is the last meeting in this hallowed chambers. The new one looks quite nice. We've toured it, and there'll be some features that I think you really like. One of the best is the acoustics are just really a lot different, and I think they're better. And it's a very attractive environment there. Not too much bigger of a room, but it's very nice looking.
Because of the overflow of crowds we usually have at these meetings. I think it'll be sufficient. Okay, so
And then one other item is that we do not expect to be holding a meeting at our next regularly scheduled October 10th date. So we don't have anything pressing, and we've got plenty to do.
so the next meeting would be October
To
24th.
4th or 5th. Don't have my calendar. 24.
All righty. Are there any items of interest from us that we'd like to back? So then entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
One second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Councilor Coleman.